I am someone who has been struggling with erectile dysfunction for over a decade, but I was able to turn it around and not have any ED problems in my life now without any drugs or anything. I'm completely natural. And I want to share with you my process by first answering some questions I think that I would want to hear if I had just stumbled onto this channel. So the question that I want to ask is, what was the mental and emotional toll of having ED? And I'm going to say this one is really heavy. I really hate talking about this because it's a little bit dark for me. But, I mean, nobody talks about it. But the big thing is there's so much shame and embarrassment, humiliation, failure, all this stuff. And you can't really talk about it with anybody. Because who wants to talk about their dingling not being able to ring, right? And so you are alone. And that's really humiliating. The big thing is it creates a big separation between you and women. If you're gay, whatever, you deal with, just understand what I'm saying, okay? You and women is a big issue. So if I'm trying to seduce a woman, I feel like I don't want to succeed. When I was in a relationship, this became this huge elephant in the room. I remember sharing my story to someone, and they once asked me, what did you tell your partner while you're going through this? And I told him, like, I would lie. I would constantly say, oh, I'm stressed, I'm dehydrated, I don't know, I didn't check the mail, it's just been on my mind the whole day. I don't know, I usually make up something, right? Even though that wasn't the problem. And the real fact of the matter is, there's nothing you can say that will fix this relationship if your banana can't get up. There's nothing you can say that will fix it. Because women are wired to want to be pursued. Women are wired to want to be attractive. And in this scenario, her man is failing to acknowledge that. And so her identity gets humiliated. And so there's this big elephant in the room that nobody can talk about, and so your relationship basically can get crushed. But I don't even think that's the worst thing. The worst thing to me was that when, you see, okay, I had worked hard in my life to become the person that I was. And a large part of that reasoning is to be attractive to the opposite sex. And when you work that hard and you can't even claim the reward, that's an awful feeling. Because you're just like, what did I do all this work for? Why did I work so hard in my career? Why did I work so hard to be fit, healthy, blah, 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 confident, all these things you did was in some capacity related to attracting women. Because if that were not on the table, I'd probably be a lazy fat fuck. Because I just wouldn't care. Who am I gonna show off to? I ain't bragging to anybody. I don't care what men think about me. But the lucrative reward is being able to have a great relationship with a great woman. And if you can't even claim the damn prize, what am I here for? And that's the dark thought. Because then that leads down to a really bad rabbit hole. And I think if you have ED, you know what I'm talking about. And so that's really hard. And that's something I really struggled with. A lot of, what am I doing here? What is the point of all this? If I can't, it's like King Midas. You work yourself hard to get to the point where anything you touch starts to become gold. Now I'm able to seduce women. Now I'm starting to become attractive. And you can't even eat to survive. And that is a really dark thought. So that's something you struggle with. The fear of being broken forever, it really gets to you. And the loneliness of it, because you can't talk to anybody. You can talk to your family about it, your friends. It's humiliating. So you really suffer alone in silence while everyone on the outside thinks everything is fine. And that isolation does a lot of damage because, and that's really just separate from the ED itself. And that's a big reason why I'm here making these videos. Because no matter how much I hate my enemies, I would never want them to experience what I experienced when I was going through this dark time. All right, next question. And this is the turnaround. When did you first know it was working? So, for whatever reason, I had some sort of intuition that I felt like I was going the right direction. And so I thankfully wrote a lot of journal notes. And I would just jot down my thoughts constantly. And it took about 7 to 8 months when it was the first time I felt like I actually had control. And not just lucky when I engaged in sex. It was the first time I felt that I could keep my erection, and it was like a real big relief, because up until then you're in constant fear and you have no confidence and you're just waiting for it to fail. And again, if you struggle with this, you know exactly what I'm talking about, because there's a lot of fear that goes into this. And it doesn't, and I gotta be really clear, this thing is not, it just like how it went down in a gradient, it doesn't go up it goes up in a gradient. So there are bad days. But what happens is that you start to have a good day, which is huge when all you had was bad days. Then you start to have more good days until eventually you have more good days than bad days. And then even to the greater point when you have so many good days, a bad day is really significant to you, because you're like, dude, I thought I'd get over this, but it didn't. But at one point, it starts to erase itself. And so that's one thing I want to really make clear, is that this method is intentional, is deliberate, and it moves in a way that's progressive. So it's not like, oh, I ate some oysters and some zinc and boom, my problem is gone. No, that's not what it is. This is a slow process, like a fat guy carving out. Remember that statue of a fat guy carving out, a fit guy underneath it? That's what this feels like. And I'm intentionally carving out and making each part of the process better each day. And each day, things get a little bit better. I mean, it's really slow, but the process is there, so it's very intentional, and eventually you can get there. I am, I think, 7-8 years in the 7 years, I think, in the process. I'm still working on it, because I want to tell you, my goal is to feel like how I felt when I was a teenager, meaning spontaneous erections. I want to last 50 minutes if I want to. I want to last as long as I want. I want to be able to get it up 5 times a day if I want. Like, I don't want to ever feel anything but strength. This should be a source of power, not a source of fear. And I'm progressively walking my way through that journey, and every single marker is showing me I'm on the progress way up. And so I think after 3 years is when things really started to really turn around when I started to have confidence, but it was about 1 year in where I was like, dude, I think I got this. And then 3 years in, I started to have confidence. So yeah, it does take time. It's not easy, and it does. At one point, I think I felt like I stopped wondering if it would work and started working on how much I can get it to work. And so that was after a year. So that really shows you about the timeline it takes to start to turn things around. If ED is something you're not sure you're struggling with, you can sign up to my website, primalhare.com, and that will just tell you, like, give you a little short 5 questionnaire, whether or not this is something you're struggling with, and if this is something that could possibly help you.